The Deer Farming Channel is brought to you by Rafter P Construction. Stick around to learn more about Rafter P's design build process and, of course, the biggest deer in the world. So howdy everybody, Keith Warren here, and this week Deer and Wildlife Stories comes to us from just outside of Manville, Texas at Tajada Whitetails. The white-tailed deer is America's favorite big game animal, and white-tailed deer farming is the fastest growing segment in the agriculture industry. Our program's mission is to dive into the world of deer farming and inform you of how deer farmers all over the country are now using rapidly developing science-based research on their captive deer herds to solve the chronic wasting disease issue through selective breeding. Not only is this new science working, but it's obvious that captive deer breeding is the only way to help save America's deer herds from CWD, which will help improve overall herd health and at the same time can produce more quality trophy-sized animals for the general public. Join me as we discover how whitetail genetics, deer auctions, animal husbandry, and so much more drive the modern-day deer farming industry. My name is Keith Warren, and this is Deer and Wildlife Stories. So this is the 15th season of Deer and Wildlife Stories, and boy, time flies. You know, I look back at it and I think, I don't know how many times I've been right here at Tajada Whitetails. And every time I come here, I'm more and more impressed. Tajada Whitetails is owned by my friend George Tunal, and those of you that don't know George, George is your friend and you don't even know it yet. George doesn't know a stranger. When you go to any deer sale across the country, you're gonna run into George Tunal and you're gonna see the Tajada Whitetails booth. And when you walk up to George, be ready to keep your mouth shut and your ears open because you're gonna learn something about the deer business.
I'm George Tunal. I own Tajada Whitetails here in Manville, Texas. Our total acreage of our farm's a little over 120 pens. We have roughly 30 on 25 acres of that. And we have roughly, depending on the time of year, anywhere between 300 to 500 deer. I got in deer farming because it was something I could do that I could include my family. My family's very much involved. We live on the place. My daughter and my wife spend many days helping with the deer. It's made us a lot closer as a family. You know, we've had the ups and the downs together.
All right, again, we're with George Tunal. This is Tajada Whitetails, and I've been coming here for a long time, okay? And George and I were talking about it earlier. It's like people wondered when would be a good time to get in the deer business, okay? And we are both in agreement that this is about the best time ever to get in the deer business. And tell everybody why.
Well, things have changed. You know, a few years ago, the sky was falling, right? And until the last few months, it's still been kind of trickling down. Deer breeders have been targeted as a problem for CWD. Although CWD has been around 60 years, but long before deer breeders ever showed up, things are finally starting to go our way. We knew they would if we could hold on long enough because legislatures and different ones have now got in agreement with us. Now they realize that we're actually the answer because we can breed the right genetics, we can breed the right way. The other reason I say it's right time getting deer business, there's deer that are great deer as far as producing on ranches and stuff. Ranchers would never spend that much money to turn these deer out in their pasture because quite honestly, you've been at auctions, you've seen us sell half a deer for $90,000, $100,000, right? Yep. Well, you can't turn that loose and hope for the best. Well, some of those best genetics are now available because we're breeding a different way. We've now got some of those really, really expensive genetics that produce the best looking bucks you could ever hope for in your pasture because the rancher really don't care if GB, AB, CIA, whatever it is, right? All that he cares is that it produces and it's a great buck and it'll help his pasture and his survivability.
It's a really good time to be in the deer business because there are not enough deer breeders to provide the amount of animals that the ranchers want. And tell everybody why the ranchers want these animals.
Well, they want to improve their genetics. They want the survivability. They want the horn growth. You know, for a long time, people would talk about, oh, I want a big, clean deer. Well, when you turn it loose in the wild, they have to work a little harder. They go down, right?
Yep.
Now they want the big frames, but they want the extras, realizing that's going to clean up in the pasture. That's what that deer is going to throw. So they're trying to provide better deer down the road. You know, these guys are really looking at their ranches. They're not looking at a 1 year, 2 program. They're looking at 5, 6 year program, just like we do on breeding.
So as we talk about stalker deer, because that's what really people are buying, stalker bucks to put on these pastures, but it's more than stalker bucks, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a lot more than stalker bucks. It's the does that are the secret. You know, if you want to build a long-lasting program, you always have to build off genetics all the way around. And whether we like to admit it or not, when I get dressed in the morning, my wife is responsible for what I wear. Well, these women, the mothers of these bucks, they're responsible for what they wear on their head, quite simply put.
Yep.
And the reason for that is that's where the genetics are passed down. Gunslinger, I have 100 bucks, and I think I might have had one out of him that looked a lot like him. But I've had 25 or 30 out of his does that you swear are a spitting image of him. Why? Because his does carry the genetics.
Yeah.
Width is one of the hardest things to carry.
Well, that's one thing. When you come to Tajada Whitetails, you're going to look at the herd. The first impression of the deer here, they're wide. Okay, and they're wide from, we're going to show you some yearlings today that are super wide. We're going to show you some older bucks that are super wide, and we're going to show you Gunslinger, who is 13 years old. 13 years old, and that's really unheard of for a legendary breeder buck, but he's 13 years old, and we're going to show him to you on today's show. Deer and Wildlife Stories is brought to you by MVP Whitetails, Dr. Ray Favero's Whitetail Genetics, Rut Manufacturing, and Rafter P Construction. For more videos on deer farming, check out the Deer Farming channel on YouTube and make sure and follow us on Facebook. So we're going to talk about breeders here at Tajada Whitetails, and we're first off start out with historic breeders. Okay, tell everybody about Jesse James.
Well, he was definitely the one that turned this ranch started, even though Gunslinger pushed it the rest of the way. Jesse James was one of those deer that he commanded your attention from his attitude as well as his look. You know, at 10 years old, you took video of him. He was 507 inches.
Yeah, he was a monster deer.
Still toting it. And he was one of those deer that his longevity showed up on this place. If he wouldn't have snapped his back, he'd probably still be walking.
And the thing about it is animal husbandry is so important in raising whitetail deer. And when you hear Jesse lived to be 10 years old, and he had a back injury, okay? But the thing is, Gunslinger, we're gonna show you Gunslinger right now. Gunslinger at 13 years old, take a look at him. Now you may look at him now and think, Gunslinger, he doesn't look like much, but he's a 13-year-old deer, okay? And a 13-year-old breeder buck, that is something to really be proud of, because first off, he's a legend in the industry. He's a living legend, but the thing about it is your animal husbandry skills are incredible to be able to keep bucks like this alive for this long, which tells me that the deer that people buy for stalkers, they're healthy deer. When they release them in their pasture, they're gonna be healthy. But even though Gunslinger is looking the way he is right now, he's still got what it takes to grow what he grew earlier in life.
Well, yeah, his 2-year-olds are awesome. Keith, he covered 32 does this year. That's the least does he's ever covered. Last year he covered 48. Year before he was 47. We work him.
And if you go on NADAR, the North American Deer Registry, and punch in Gunslinger, you're going to see how many offspring out of him. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot. It's over 1,000.
It's over 1,000.
I mean, it's a lot. So, okay, let's talk about some other historic breeders that you've had.
Well, we got Lone Ranger, which with his markers and all, he's one of those deer that we passed up. We bred him some, but with circumstances, we quit breeding him. Now all of a sudden he's back to the forefront, and everybody breeding him and having phenomenal results. Texas Jack, 8 years old. The reason that we have these deer, and the reason that these deer continue to be in our breeding program, is that they live.
And they produce.
Yeah, they produce, but the main thing is longevity. You know, years ago I said, hey, we're not going to breed deer that die because I can't sell dead deer.
Yep.
And breeding nice 2-year-olds is great, but you got to make sure that they're going to live there as well. And you know, Lawman, a deer that we didn't talk about, 4 years ago when you was out here, 3 years ago, you videoed him. Well, this year, 2 of the biggest sons, that's one reason that we chose those 2 sons to look at. We had a lot of big deer to look at, but the reason we marketed those, that is our program. That is our program over Gunslinger Mama's genetics. But that's the reason Lawman is important to us, is because he showed this is what this farm produces. This is what these people are getting. We can go out and breed the best bucks, and we do. We breed great bucks. We bred a lot of blackjack and different bucks, and Wayland and Willie. We bred them all. But the truth of the matter is, when you get deer from our farm, this is what our deer produce, and that's what we want to show you. We have another deer. You'll see Lefty this year. He damaged himself on his right. He's over 45 inches inside. He's blackjack gunslinger over Triggerman's mama. Tines are a little longer on one side this year because he did the damage, but he's a giant buck. He carries it. Last year he was 44 inches inside, and people are like, well, the industry wants a big clean deer. They say that. But I guarantee you, when I drive guys in here, they say, hey, I want a 230-inch, clean, big, beautiful deer. They send me a picture. I send them one. Oh, I got to have that deer. Keith, I cannot tell you. I won't name the guy's name, but he drove in here last year, and they were at the back pasture. We drove past a deer in this pen. He said, who's that? I said, I don't know. He's blue so-and-so. He said, he's not a breeder? I said, no. He said, is he for sale? Yeah. Before we got to the pen, he drove 7 hours to look at these deer. He had bought 5 deer for a substantial amount of money. So I think, man, it's going to be a good day because I know he's going to buy these next 3. I sent him pictures of them. I said, all right, let's go back to pen. He said, I'm out of money. And I thought to myself, you come look for big, clean deer and you bought the biggest deer in the pen. The reality is, yes, we got to have a frame on it, but people like big deer, period. They got to have frame, but extras is a good thing.
Okay, so if you want big deer and you want to get a hold of George Tunal, give him a telephone number.
832-622-2571.
And they're located just south of Houston, Texas, not even an hour from the Hobby Airport. And come on out here, and I think you're going to be impressed. When Deer and Wildlife Stories returns, we're going to show you a couple of 2-year-olds, and we're going to show you some stalkers that's going to blow your mind. Deer and Wildlife Stories is brought to you by the Animal Kingdom Auction Barn and 5K Ranch, LE Fence Company, the Texas Deer Association, Rutt Manufacturing, and New Dart. Deer and Wildlife Stories will be right back. Closed captioning is brought to you by Advanced Deer Genetics.
Where are we headed now?
We're going to go take a look at some of our 2-year-olds.
I've heard about them. I hear you got a few good ones.
We got a few good ones.
They're big, George. They're big.
They're 2 years old. They're supposed to get there by 2.
Turn that thing off. Tell me about them.
I mean, this is every year, every time I come out here, I'm blown away. And you got your deer at 2 years old. Look at these guys. Folks, these are giants. Now, I know that yellow tag buck in there, it's older than 2, but tell me about these 2-year-olds. I mean, because you've got some whopper daddies in there.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we really, we've always really prided ourselves on trying to get width and time length.
So in this pen, you've got 2 bucks that we want to talk about. Rawhide. Which one is Rawhide?
Rawhide is the big, tall, kind of laid out. He's only going to be right at 30 inches on beam. The top of his points are going to be a little wider than that because he lays out.
Yep.
He's got big forks. There's been a lot of people compared him to another popular deer in the industry. I think you'll see the resemblance. This one here really has the frame. He has long beams. He has everything going for him, and
pedigree.
Pedigree, I gotta love the bottom side as well as the top side. Lawman, gunslinger, easy does it. Gunslinger's mama.
Wow. And who's this other 2-year-old you want to play?
The other 2-year-old is Hickok. He's the one that's got everybody's attention. What really makes him neat, as you can see, he does it. A lot of your wide deer are wide at the tip. He's wide 7.5 inches back. He's just shy of 37 inside. That's 7 inches back of his beam. And so whenever we knocked him down the other day, because we thought he had a foot problem, and he did, a soft foot problem, he was 32-inch beams at that time, and he's 2 years old. And he is directly Lawman over Gunslinger's sister.
Well, I mean, proven genetics. Absolutely proven genetics, and the performance is just there year after year. So, okay, the bucks that you're going to keep out of here, these 2-year-olds that you're going to keep, okay, we talked about them. Where are the other ones going?
There will be, I think in this particular pen, I think there's 6 going to DMP pens.
Explain to everybody what a DMP
DMP pen basically is where a guy really wants to improve his genetics. He goes with a helicopter, he'll round up some of his deer out of the pasture, put them in a pen, turn this buck loose with them, breed them, and then turn the deer back loose in the pasture.
So that way, for sure, he knows those deer are bred by that one buck.
By that one buck.
Yeah, wow.
And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to mix it up and really make sure that they bring in the genetics.
Okay, so as far as selling, you're selling bucks, stalker does. You're selling semen, of course, but you're also selling a DMP deer. If somebody wants a DMP buck in the state of Texas, you want a good DMP buck, call George and give him a phone number.
832-622-2571.
All right, so when we return, we're going to show you some yearling bucks right here at Tajada Whitetails.
Deer and Wildlife Stories is brought to you by Record Rack Deer and Elk Feeds, the North American Deer Registry, New Dart, Mossy Rock Ranch, and the North American Deer Farmers Association. Now it's time for the LE Fence Minute.
Hey guys, it's Ron with LE Fence out here. Today we're looking at a pretty different style of privacy fence. What we did is the customer had an 8-foot game fence, but they didn't want people to be able to see into the property and still keep it semi-rustic and outdoorsy. So what we did is we actually came in here and put 8-foot tall cedar posts. And it's a lot of cedar posts, let me tell you. But in order to help keep the fence upright, because with the amount of wind that this will catch during storms or just a really windy, crazy Texas day, we had to go in and really support the fence. We came in and put 4.5-inch verticals every 40 feet just to help keep the fence standing upright. So whatever unique, crazy idea you might come up with, we can help you out here at LE Fence, whether it's fence clearing, new fence construction, or any type of land improvement you could think of.
Well, that's a pretty impressive group of yearlings right here. That one right there, I love. He's clean, he's pretty, he's wide. That's my kind of deer. But who is that one right there? Green 240. Who in the heck is that? And he's a yearling.
He's a yearling. He's a really cool yearling for us. He was actually born in August. He's a fawn out of a fawn. We had brain freeze over him. Yeah, he's not even.
So he's a year old.
He's right at a year old. Yeah. He was born in August. I think it was August the 6th he was born. And I can go back and check the date. He's a late born deer. But as you can see, he's got 13-inch tines on the yearling. He's got
3 of them.
Probably, yeah, he's got some pretty good ones.
Long beam.
Long beams. Got enough extras to be interesting. He's going to be probably 230, 250 inches, maybe a little better.
There's a yearling. And again, right now we're in the 3rd week of August, so that deer is a year and 2 weeks old.
Right. Late born. A lot of times you expect him to be like this.
Right.
But he's not.
So what are you going to do with him?
We're going to cover a few does with him this year as a yearling. Once we do that, the problem with covering as a yearling, you have to commit to him till he's 3.
So you've got to keep him. In other words, if you have a buck that you believe in, you better breed him as a yearling.
Breed him as a yearling, and if he goes down at 2, don't worry. Show him at 3. Before everybody, I want him at 2, I want him at 2. Me personally, I love blackjack. And Robert Myers will tell you, I didn't breed blackjack till he was 5. I was behind the 8 ball. And everybody said, why did you breed him so late? I want to make sure he was going to live. And so before I go all in on a buck, I want to make sure that he's hardy. I mean,
and blackjack to this day is still alive.
Yeah, still alive.
He's healthy.
And I mean, I've still got deer out here. I bred him last year, and because of his longevity. Same thing with these deer. You know, if you really believe in a deer and he's got the look, he's got what you're after, bringing into your herd. Brain Freeze has been an interesting deer. He was a little popular at first, and we got some other people involved with him. Jesse Boger deer, and we bred the fire out of him, and we're seeing really good production.
Yeah.
And he's taken our market in an outcross way that we didn't have.
I want to point something out. You know, we're talking about the deer and about their longevity. Okay, this is a harsh environment. Okay, we're south of Houston, Texas. It is hot. It is humid. It's tough conditions. And those deer, for them to live into the double digits, 10, 11, 12 years old, these deer are hardy. Okay, and if you're going to buy a deer, I would encourage you to buy deer that are hardy, that live. Okay, if you buy a deer and he's going to live to 3 or 4 years old and he's gone, then your investment, you're not getting a good return on your investment. If you can buy one of these deer that's going to last to the double digits, think about that. What the return on the investment is so much better. And so you can buy these deer, stock your ranch with it, and like you said, some of them you'll tag them. And so years down the road, yes, they may get shot, but you're given an opportunity for those deer to spread those genetics, those healthy genetics through your pasture for years and years to come.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I had a individual come buy deer from me one day, and he didn't show up. 6 months down the road, I figured out why. They get down to South Texas, and they were talking about swamp. Well, old George's deer down there, they live in a swamp, and they got bad feet, and they're this and that. Well, you don't see my deer with bad feet. And the reason is the deer that have bad feet die. We don't breed that genetic. The deer that don't handle this environment, we don't breed that. It's not uncommon, and you've heard me tell the story in Harvey. If you look at that fence behind you, I come out in this pen right here in a boat. Water was this deep where we're standing, and we were feeding on top of these big hills. It's the only place the deer could get. We couldn't find Gunslinger. We said, oh my God, he must be dead. This is 7 years ago, right? He's 6 years old, right in the prime. And so we got looking, all of a sudden, right here in this corner, water 6 foot deep. He's swimming the fence line, because every day he walked the fence line. And I mean, literally, yeah, I got water at the top of the back. You know how many deer we lost? We lost one deer 3 days later called Bevo. He was a pet deer, died of VHD. We didn't know he was sick because he's always so calm. That's all we lost in the flood.
So the deer here are hardy. They are hardy and they will live. And I'm telling you, this is a heck of a group of yearlings. It really is. I mean, this kind of yearlings that everybody wishes they could grow. Got a little bit of something, everything. If you like typicals, you got typical. You like non-typical, you got them. You got a little bit of everything. And folks, if y'all want more information about Tajada Whitetails, you can get a hold of George Tunal. Give him a phone number.
832-622-2571.
And if you want to see more deer and wildlife stories programs, head on over to YouTube. Check out the Deer Farming channel where you can watch us 24/7. I'm Keith Warren with George Tunal, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for your time.
For more videos on deer farming, check out the Deer Farming channel on YouTube and Facebook. Rafter P Construction is rural America's premier design build contractor, building projects from the ground up for luxury home builds to barn dominiums, from deer and agricultural facilities to lodges, and all property improvements and infrastructure. You need to check out Rafter P Construction. Specializing in quality farm and ranch design build projects, Rafter P Construction encourages their customers to be very hands-on. Rafter P Construction, they'll be with you every step of the way to build your dream project.